So I've been thinking a lot over the past few days about what exactly is going on here in our little community. I mean, there's a few of us who regularly exchange videos with each other, but there's also a larger community that just watches, responds, and text comments. But what is it that we've been hashing out about this, determinism, free will, science, religion, um, talk? What are we trying to say? And why is it that I consistently get painted as the phantasmagorical one, when for me personally, when I come into contact with someone else who is spiritual and they start telling me about what they believe, I turn into a scientific skeptic. So I don't conceive of myself as, a mystic. Um, and yet that's who I become at times in this community. So I was wondering what is it that's causing the opposition to this? Well, I don't know what you could call it, not belief, but faith. Because I look at the same evidence everybody else looks at. I think. I mean, I'm willing to admit most of the things people tell me about the world. I just say, yeah, that's true, but there's also this and this and this. So I don't draw the same conclusion that you do, even though we all observe the same facts, so to speak. We come to different, sometimes completely opposite conclusions. And when I look at, let's say the modern mystic, Nick, or in Mendham, Gary, they have something in common. Though they may disagree with each other at times, what they have in common is just an attitude that there's something as a human species that we've got to get over and accept, and it's not a good thing. Um, both Nick and Gary are atheist, which I could be described that way too. I don't go around saying I'm an atheist. It's not a positive attribute. It's just what you don't believe. It doesn't tell anybody much about you though. So I don't you know profess myself an atheist, but the idea is, I think, that humanity's got to grow up and forget this belief we used to have to comfort ourselves that somehow we have a purpose that's given to us by our Father in the sky, who created this whole world for us to go through some kind of historical drama in, to learn some apparently important lesson. Believing that gives us a reason to wake up in the morning, or it used to, and it still does for many people. But it seems like science and rationality have made these beliefs impossible. And I would tend to agree, which is why, yeah, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in a mythological God. At least, that's not the only story we can tell about reality. But the reason I think I frustrate, at least Gary, maybe not so much Nick, he goes along with it sometimes, but I don't know if he really buys most of it. You know, I say everything is a story, whether it's science, religion, literature. Human beings tell stories, whether we're scientists or artists or theologians or scholars. We tell stories, we create images. And science certainly tries to mimic nature and produce human images which do not contradict the data which has been collected, the experiments which have been performed. But see, there's always that aspect of science. There's technique, which produces data. If you don't have a technique, if you don't have a theory and an experiment to perform using, at least in physics, the most state-of-the-art technologies, without that apparatus, that technique, that technology, science couldn't collect any data about the world. So our scientific observation is always an imposition of some kind. Um, we are trying to catch nature in the act that we have theoretical reasons to suspect it might be doing. And this is how science progresses. Either our experiment proves that there is something like what we thought going on down there, or up there, or whatever we're looking at. But we can't say that it is what we thought we were looking for. Exactly. We're still dealing with our abstraction and the feedback we've gotten from applying it to reality. And so the feedback tells us when we're not right, but it doesn't tell us when we're right. So we construct from this knowing when we're not wrong data a story, a cosmology that's coherent and non-contradictory, or at least that's what science should strive for. In a sense, I kind of agree with Nick and Gary that we have to grow up. We have to accept that some stories are more true, or at least truer in certain situations than other stories. The idea that we were put here in this world by a very culturally dependent monotheistic God, something that half the human population maybe doesn't believe in and didn't even hear of until a few hundred years ago. Certainly that needs to be forgotten, or at least understood as not the story, not as accurate a story as we can tell by paying attention to the world around us.